What if the most celebrated leaders in history got it wrong? Steve Jobs screaming in elevators. Elon Musk bulldozing everyone in his path. Jeff Bezos building an empire on relentless pressure. We've been told that arrogance is the price of genius. But what if the real secret to lasting leadership isn't domination, it's something we've completely overlooked? This is the inspiring pillar. And by the end of this video, you'll see why the most powerful leaders don't shout. They build. We have a problem. We've been sold a lie about what leadership looks like. The boss who screams. The CEO who throws chairs. We've been conditioned to call them geniuses. Steve Jobs firing people in elevators. Elon Musk bulldozing anyone in his path. Jeff Bezos building an empire on relentless pressure. We look at their success and we think, that's what it takes. But here's the truth they don't tell you, their success happened despite their behavior, not because of it. And the cost? Burnout. Turnover. Teams that follow out of fear instead of passion. Today, we're tearing down the myth of the toxic genius and rebuilding what real leadership actually looks like. Welcome to the inspiring pillar. Here's the paradox that keeps CEOs up at night. Some of the most famous leaders in history were, let's be honest, kind of terrible to work for. Steve Jobs would humiliate people in meetings. Bill Gates had legendary screaming fits. Steve Ballmer. He literally threw chairs. Andy Grove at Intel was so intense that an employee actually passed out during a performance review. And yet, these people built empires. Apple, Microsoft, Intel, Amazon. They're icons. So we absorbed a dangerous idea, that arrogance is the price of greatness. That you have to be ruthless to change the world. That humility is weakness. The media celebrates the abrasive visionary. Movies glorify the brilliant jerk. And slowly, we started believing that domination is leadership. But science tells a very different story. Let me introduce you to something I call the visibility trap. Professor David Heckman from the University of Colorado puts it perfectly. He says dominating behaviors are more visible, often celebrated, and can actually accelerate your rise to the top. Arrogance is an accelerant. It gets you noticed. It gets you promoted. It creates the illusion of strength. But here's what we forget, acceleration isn't the same as destination. A car that redlines off the starting line can crash just as fast. The narcissist rises quickly, yes. They command attention. They project certainty. But that's exactly where the wheels come off. Because getting to the top. That's the easy part. Staying there, building something that lasts. That requires a completely different skill set. A 2022 study in organizational dynamics uncovered something fascinating about the life cycle of charisma. They call it the tipping point. At first, it's intoxicating. The confidence, the vision, the bravado, people are magnetically drawn to someone who seems unstoppable. They want to follow. They want to be part of something big. But then something shifts. Day after day, the friction builds. The arrogance becomes exhausting. The volatility becomes draining. The genius act. It stops being impressive and starts being unbearable. That initial magnetism transforms into something the researchers call organizational repulsion. People stop innovating. They stop speaking up. They stop caring. They follow out of fear instead of passion. And fear, as it turns out, is a terrible engine for long-term growth. So let's compare two architectures of power. On one side, you have the steamroller. Fast ascent. Highly visible. Drives with fear and compliance. The followers adhere because they have to. But the foundation? Fragile. Entirely dependent on one person. If that leader leaves, if they stumble, if they lose their edge, everything crumbles. On the other side, you have the pillar. Slower ascent. Methodical. Build sincere, loyal followership. The foundation. Solid. Enduring. Distributed across the team. This is what a 2015 study in the Journal of Applied Psychology called the happy mix, a blend of confidence and humility that outperforms both pure arrogance and pure self-effacement. The steamroller wins the sprint. The pillar wins the dynasty. Which one are you building? But wait, let's be crystal clear about what humility actually is. Because too many people confuse humility with weakness. They think it means shrinking, apologizing, letting people walk all over you. That's not humility. That's fear dressed up as virtue. Real humility is a daily discipline. 3 practices. First, owning fallibility. Actively admitting when you're wrong. Not hiding mistakes, but surfacing them. Second, elevating others. Consistently highlighting what your team did, not what you did. Third, continuous inquiry. Staying curious. Demonstrating that you don't have all the answers, and that you're actively seeking better ones. Notice what's missing. Self-deprecation. Apologizing for existing. Pretending you don't know things you actually know. That's not humility. That's theater. True humility is strength with open ears. Here's where most people get it wrong. There's a rule about humility that I call the proximity rule. In the private sphere, one-on-one conversations, small team meetings, direct feedback, vulnerability is your greatest asset. Admitting a mistake to someone you trust. It builds deep psychological safety. Showing a crack in the armor to a colleague. It tells them, you can be human too. But in the public sphere, broadcasting your weaknesses to the entire organization, to the market, to the world, that can backfire. Not because humility is bad, but because context matters. Public vulnerability can erode confidence. It can invite strategic exploitation. The key isn't being humble or being bold. The key is knowing when to open up and when to stand tall. Proximity is everything. Now let's add another layer. Cultural calibration. Because humility is not universal. What reads as humble in one culture reads as incompetent in another. In the United States, there's a high confidence bias. People expect enthusiasm, certainty, boldness. A leader who's too conservative, too self-effacing. They get read as lacking confidence. As unsure. As failing. In Canada or Scandinavia, it's almost the reverse. There's a high humility bias. Overt enthusiasm. Aggressive confidence. That gets read as arrogance. As untrustworthy. The same behavior that inspires an American team can alienate a Scandinavian one. The great leader isn't the one with a fixed style. The great leader calibrates. They adapt their expression of humility and confidence to the culture they're leading. It's not about being fake. It's about being fluent. Let me kill one more myth while we're here. There's a false equivalency floating around that humility means self-effacement. That you have to make yourself small to make others feel big. That is not humility. That is abdication. Self-effacement is when you deflect credit so hard people stop knowing what you actually contributed. When you downplay your role to the point where no one trusts your judgment. When you refuse to stand in your competence because you're afraid of looking arrogant. True humility doesn't erase your competence. It just doesn't need to announce it every 5 seconds. The humble leader doesn't say I'm nothing. They say I'm here, and so are you. Let's build something together. There's a massive difference between being humble and being invisible. One is strength. The other is fear pretending to be virtue. So what's the actual formula? It's not arrogance. It's not self-effacement. It's something researchers call the ultimate synthesis. A happy mix. Studies show that leaders who combine high confidence with high humility outperform everyone else. Why? Because confidence gives people something to believe in. It provides direction, clarity, momentum. It's the vision. Humility makes people want to follow. It creates safety, trust, loyalty. It's the connection. Without confidence, you're a nice person with no direction. People like you, but they don't follow you. Without humility, you're a dictator with a cult following. People obey, but they don't care. But with both, you're something rare. You're a leader people follow not because they have to, but because they genuinely want to. Roman Orichuk said it best. Combining humility and self-confidence makes it possible to develop inspiring leadership based on influence rather than authority, which is significantly more effective and durable. Think about that distinction. Authority is positional. It's the title on your door. The power to hire and fire. It can be given. It can be taken away. Influence is earned. It's the reason people choose to follow you even when they don't have to. And here's the beautiful thing, influence scales. Authority collapses when you're not in the room. Influence multiplies. It gets passed down. It becomes the foundation of a culture. So here's my question for you, are you building a career on authority, or are you building a legacy on influence? The steamroller gets noticed. The pillar gets remembered. Which one do you want to be? Let me know in the comments.